Everyone, welcome back. I hope that you enjoyed the first part of Shawn's talk, the chat that we had about mental illness, about emotional wellness. So, join us for the second part. There's one of the common behavior, quite number, when they in the morning after they leave their house, they lock the door, and after a few, they are locked the door. Is that considered an OCD?
No, I mean, a lot of us do it.
Oh no, okay.
But depending on how severe it is.
Okay. So how do you define severe? In what sense?
So, according to the book.
Okay.
According to the book, it has to impact your daily function to a severe extent, right?
Okay.
But sometimes even if you don't have full-blown OCD, there can be an aspect of your personality as well.
Right.
So if you come across as being pretty particular, anxious, very persistent about certain things that you do, then you might prefer certain systematic ways to get comfortable with doing something. Okay. Usually, again, it's about helping you feel a particular way. So sometimes the checking of the switches and all that before you leave the house is about feeling like insecure that you have actually done it, right? So it's about comfort at the end of the day. But the thing is, I think there's a lot of research that's shown that it usually accompanies family members that are highly anxious as well.
Okay.
So if you were an OCD sufferer, most likely you have one or two parents that are highly anxious.
So in a way, it's hereditary.
That's not where I was coming from.
Yeah, that's because it's the way it was. The way I understand.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's not hereditary in the sense of that way, but more we learn from the people around us how to manage things. So a part of that would be learning how to emotional manage. So if, say for example, someone's mom is highly anxious, right, reactive at most things, causing the individual to feel like they also need to respond in that same way to a particular stimulus or a situation, causing them to have to upregulate themselves to feel like that's intense as well. Right? That would be the normative thing. So that's very normal at home to be this way, as opposed to just non-reactiveness at home. A lot of silence at home. There's a lot more avoidance of feeling. No one talks very much. You're in your rooms all the time. Those kind of situations.
Can I ask you something? Just now you mentioned about the OCD and personality. All right. Familiar with the DIC profiling? All right. Is there close relation between the introvert, so-called the C, which is consciousness, or S is steadiness? Are there more the chance of them become an OCD? Because it's relation to personality.
So So it depends on the individual.
Okay.
So say if the person is, like I mentioned earlier on, in our talk, that depends on how you conceptualize the person's issue, how you understand the issue.
Right.
So in their set of how they cope with things, their personality tends to be has aspects of dependability on others, but they feel like they are highly neurotic, or if their sense of self-worth or efficacy, right? Like everything I cannot do, I cannot do well and all that, very negative sense of ourselves. It would be harder for them to feel that they can cope with these obsessiveness, right? That they need to go through these things to feel better about it. Because in general, there are many factors as to why we might have a particular set of issues like OCD. Right? So some can be based on trauma they've gone through in their life. Some can be based on other things too. Right? So we cannot just assume that because of this thing, straightforward, then we'll have that. Right? So for many people, it's very different. I mean, in some ways, it's sort of answering your question, but also opens a lot of variability for people to try not to assume that this person looks like they're very particular about something, have OCD. Right? Because we use it very loosely to say, oh yeah, I got OCD. This is my OCD. So we sometimes talk about it in jest as well.
Yes.
Doesn't mean that it's really OCD. Yeah.
But they say the more you say, you actually will make you in some ways in sooner or later self-fulfilling in some ways.
Self-fulfilling is one. It is also a particular way of interpreting things. So yeah, I would say that if you suspect that you have some concerns, go to a professional. I think sometimes that helps best. Yeah.
How would you actually help these people which is very close to you, and you see certain behavior, for example, the OCD part? How would you advise them? That do I tell you, hey, you are really OCD, or even though we are not trained to identify what could be the symptoms of an OCD?
Right.
Yeah.
I think typically what I do with people who know me,
Yeah.
I would tend to switch that off a little bit.
Okay.
I may observe certain things. I may just briefly mention like, is everything okay?
Okay.
I would never go too close to saying that someone might have OCD, who I know. I would in fact just suggest the person to maybe, are you concerned about anything? As a caring friend, but I would then direct them to see someone else.
Right.
Professionally speaking, that is something responsible to do.
Okay.
Because we don't do something called multiple relationships, because if we were to do that, it's kind of unethical. So we don't see anybody that we might know. We don't see anyone related, or friends or acquaintances.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I can see you then.
I'm afraid not.
So you will refer me to another person. See, one of the common emotion of us, anger. All right. Just share with me, is anger really hereditary? Because sometimes when I was younger, my mom said, "You are just like a father." So you what like my father? You are very hot tempered. So I just wonder, is it in me? All right, is it through genes or is it nature? Yeah. So
anger is a primary emotion that all of us has.
Yes, correct.
So if you were to say that, is it just in you?
Yeah. Is it acquired or is it in genes? Yeah. I think it's so far that I've read and hear from professionals that some say it's genes, some say you downloaded it from your parents, some say it's because it's acquired through an environment that you're in. So maybe can you share that with me?
I would say it's all the above.
Okay. Oh, okay. Alright.
So short of going into a lecture about this,
No problem, yeah.
which is all of us have a temperament.
Okay.
So innately speaking, when we are first born, how we have a certain temperament. Some of us might be easy, difficult, slow to settle. These things are actually quite natural. Okay, so depending on how we are as a basis of our personality, to start with, thinking about baseline foundation, then that's where we get a bit more irritated easily, rough around the edges and all that. But it also can mean how easily we are soothed. So with that basis, if we existed in a family that is highly emotional or even angry, what tends to happen is we can be influenced by what's the appropriate or not appropriate feelings to have in the context of the family.
Okay.
So we observe and we learn, just like as we say, children are like sponges.
Yes.
They learn very quickly how to respond, and they what we call internalize those experiences. So a bit abstract, but we call it a representation of how we can express ourselves in the most acceptable way in the household. So if you have a very aggressive, leaning towards aggressive kind of families, then most likely children who can come from there might go both ways.
More violently.
Yeah. Either they also accompany the aggressiveness, or they just want to shut down all the time. Yeah. So this is actually quite normal. It's like for us, it tends to occur a lot in clients that we see a lot.
Okay.
Because that would suggest also that these are acquired along the way because of unhealthy environments, perhaps at home, at schools, certain parts of the life of the child, growing up. So as adults, we of course, this is not the only reason why we might be a particular way. We might expect, we might display some of these responses, emotional responses to in school, with our friends, with our partners as well, and ultimately cement these into place when we become like adolescents and young adults. Of course, this has to do with understanding how personality works.
Okay.
But over time, the simple way is that, like concrete, right? You want to pour the mixture.
Yeah.
If there are impurities in there, it's going to harden, it solidifies, and that's your personality for the rest of your life.
Okay.
It's unshakable. In the research, they say it's from 18 years old.
Oh, right.
Right? But according to other theories like Freud, right,
Yeah.
it's personality is settled by 3 to 6 years old. Right? So depending on how you see the situation
Sure.
and how we might work with people, we can see different things. But yeah, I think just in general, our personality, like say for example, we talk about anger, right? I would say that it's something that's a primary emotion that all of us has.
Yes.
It can easily be dysregulated or put into imbalance whenever we are very distressed,
Right.
highly overwhelmed by something. Say someone passing away in our lives, frequent quarrels with the partner, threats you've received from people, failures that you might have experienced in life, and you interpret that as failures as well.
Yeah.
So all these things can be quite they throw you into imbalance, essentially. Yeah.
Right. So with that understanding, that means the environment plays an important role. So you have to be positive. You have to be in that positive environment. So if you become toxic, sometimes you call in my work, and sometimes you say very toxic. The environment is very toxic. So not to be toxic, you better get out of the environment. So in a way, generally, environment plays a very big role in that.
It does. We would often say that environment sometimes plays a larger portion.
Okay.
In life, but at the same time, as what we talked about, as what you just said, about getting out of that so-called toxic environment. The thing is, sometimes we cannot leave those environments.
Okay.
So that would we might play into encouraging our clients.
So what would you suggest if I'm in that toxic environment, in that kind of department, let's say? So I am aware, but I no choice, more pain. I'm part of that team. So what can I do? What would you advise me?
The thing is not about doing, because if you start reacting to situations, it doesn't really help.
Okay.
So we need to encourage individuals to start to understand what's going on for them in that context. Why does it trigger them so much, for example? A lot of therapists might go into the direction of telling people what to do, problem solving a situation and all that. I don't think it really helps them along the way. So what we want to try to perhaps take a step back, encourage them to think about the current situation. Because it's not just an emotional thing, but it's how they interpret the situation too.
Right.
Because they interpret that you're stuck in there, it's not useful. So there's a lot more that we can talk through the situation with our clients. Right? So also helping them see that they can deal with this by themselves without necessarily having to leave the toxic environment. Because by definition, if they were to go to another environment, it can equally just be the same.
Yeah.
Because they have responded the same way to other situations.
Okay.
So we don't just want to plug the holes whenever something comes up. We want to assist them to address these lifelong issues for good, if possible.
Yeah. So it's a changing of perception here. Can I say that?
Our perception is one important thing, yes.
Yeah.
I mean, if you think about it, if you respond emotionally to the same situation all the time, you might feel like it's no use. I feel this way at the same time, all the darn time. But if we can assist the individual, support them to work through a situation and see that actually they can have a range of reactions to the same situation, it might change their perspectives as well. So we cannot have therapy without actually working with emotions too.
Wow, very interesting. Yeah, I know. Okay, I go deeper. You can give me a lecture on that already, probably 2 hour, 3 hours lectures, right? Because this is about emotion, and everyone is going through kind of challenges nowadays, and how we actually manage our emotions. And one of the key emotion that you say, our primary emotion will be anger. That's why one of the questions that I ask you, how you actually manage our anger itself. Right? Some will just not show it, some will just hide it behind it, but we know one day it will just blow up. Alright. So by the way, for all this, you've been I've seen for many years. How do you get into psychology? What interests you to go into this area? If I do remember when quite a number of years ago, you were actually in IT. IT and psychology, I think, is like a two different world. One is the hardware, now is the hardware. Alright, so what brings you into psychology?
Well, firstly, that's a nice play on the words. I think that's quite interesting. I think in the previous life when
Or you're reincarnated.
in the previous life, I don't think that really sat with me. It was a bit dry. And I think shared experiences of working with people at different ages, seeing things change in people also, in extracurricular activities, those kind of contexts help to shape the way that I might start to see what I'm good at, I suppose. So along the way, it's a trial and error process also. I mean, like most people, and ultimately deciding to pursue another different stretch of study and training. From there, I never saw myself as having a flair for it, but I think along the way you learn and you grow, and you pick things up. Sometimes a bit slow, sometimes a bit fast.
What was the turning point?
Not too sure. I think it's
how do you chance the word? Oh, psychology. All right, I choose it. Yeah, there must be certain thing that may happen that you decide to from hardware to really the hardware.
I think there was a certain point in time where we were all very young at that time, having to decide. I mean, sometimes it's reading what's in during that time. Healthcare was something that was coming up, and it was a time of leaving national service. Then you started to have to think a bit more seriously about what you want to do. And that's when I suppose the realization that I just can't do what I'm doing further anymore. So I had to look for other things that I think I may be better at. So that led me onto the route of next thing I knew, after I finished national service, I was on a plane to Australia and spent a good number of years there training. So I haven't seen you guys in a long time as well. But those are good experiences.
How long you were in Australia? And
just not including the living would be about 7 years of training.
Oh, 7 years of training. That's your basic? Your bachelor's?
The undergrad and the postgrad. So usually what happens in our course of study will be 4 years of undergrad, including the honours. Postgrad, usually you're going to have at least 2 years, but I did another year for the doctorate. So that includes research as well as the extra clinical training you get. So I think made a lot of good relationships overseas, and loving the people that I work with, meeting a lot of different people from all walks of life. I think of them quite often, and the opportunities that that you could have had. So the thing is, bringing some of that big thinking back here to Singapore, in a way in which we roll things out, how we do the practice, and how we even just make the whole place feel a bit more comfortable, has a lot of origins in where I've been before.
There's some for those out there who are keen to join psychology or take psychology as a profession, what does it take actually?
I felt like I've talked about this many times, but I think your question was about education, or
what is probably education? What does it take, right? And then what does it take to be a good psychologist like you?
I'm not sure about good psychologists, but it's all subjective. But I would say that to start with, education-wise, if you want to be a clinical psychologist, you will have to have an undergraduate university education that fulfills accreditation depending on where you go. So if you're doing it in Singapore, because we have clinical programs here, or you're doing it in Australia or the US, there are different standards to fulfill. But you have to go through your undergrad most places have the 4th year of continuity, which is your honors year.
Yeah.
And doing well past that, you can apply for your postgraduate training,
Okay.
depending on which area of psychology you want to do.
Yeah.
Whether you do research or you want to do a practice coursework. So from there, then you can start to specialize a little bit in terms of the area that you want to train.
Right.
It's not just about grades, but it's also about maybe life experience or jobs you've done before that can assist you go into the interview process when they were to select the postgraduate clinical trainees. So it's not easy to get in. It's quite tough, but once you get through, they ensure that you have the aptitude as well as the opportunities, the more like a better word's ability to see the course through, and they're not taking on individuals that look like they cannot do and become someone to help someone else.
Yeah.
Because they will have to weed out the individuals that may not be able to get through, right? But even if you don't get through, it doesn't mean that that's the end of it,
Right.
because different universities look for different criteria, satisfy different criteria for postgraduate study. I mean, I don't want to put it out there, but a lot of universities, they are like an institution. They are also either private institutions that would often, due to many factors, cultural or political factors, select students for different purposes.
Yeah.
Right, so I think fair enough, so sometimes I would say to many students, it's not about a university that you go into. Following that, once you have the criteria settled and all that, it's more about choosing the people you like to train with.
Okay.
Those kind of things. That might be more important than the prestige of a particular university and all that, because ultimately that doesn't make you a better psychologist. Yeah.
Just now you mentioned about psychology, at what stage you decide to specialize. What are the different branches of psychology are there?
Multiple.
I think we just name a few that
probably
in context of Singapore that is growing demand.
There's your developmental, educational,
right,
sports.
In Singapore especially, where do you see in terms of the growth areas in different branches of psychology?
I would say all these areas are growing.
Okay.
Right? The clinical and counselling, so to speak, are sort of like no-brainers. I mean, sort of like in development hold as well.
Right.
The other areas that maybe sometimes not so clear-cut is the developmental ones.
Okay.
Educational. I mean, a lot of people might go into education, healthcare, policy making. Don't quote me. I may not be right in all this, but I think forensic psychology.
Forensics.
There's not many of our colleagues here in the context, but there's. I think we need individuals like this, good forensic psychologists as well.
Just a bit more. What does forensic psychology does?
Well, they play a huge role in the criminology of aspects.
Okay.
Right? Being familiar with the law as well.
All right.
And providing assessments for that clientele as well. Right. I think other areas of focus might be obviously like the PhDs, right? That would be one also, just purely research. Okay. For the time being, I think just in our local context, it's those avenues that tend to line up with our public service efforts and all those things are quite clear cut. Yeah.
Okay. So Shawn, you have built this, come a long way. So what's next for you?
Right? Not too sure actually.
Yeah.
Right. I think my sights are still set on growing the practice.
Okay.
But what that means is also because I'm such a people person. My sights are set on growing the people that are working with me currently.
Right.
So as I like to say to a lot of people that we work with, like at the psychology practice, we love people. Right? We absolutely love people. And we also love working and growing and developing people as well. So one of the big things here would be about doing things together,
Okay.
attending training together,
Sure.
building on each other,
Right.
having, in our profession, we do this already, but we particularly emphasize on this. So, peer supervision, providing avenues for, as the business grows, we have a bit more leeway to send people for more training and things like that. Working together, discussing it in groups to do a bit more larger, maybe corporate or workshop kind of
Right.
things as well. That might be quite useful. I suppose one arm that we haven't really put it out there that much would be an assessment arm.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
so we do that, but it's not something that we publicize or say so much that we do. So mostly people seek us for therapy.
Right.
Because our therapists here on the team have actually many years of experience
Sure.
before joining our practice. So as a result, I think these are sort of our strengths here at the practice as well.
Right.
Yeah.
How many in your team?
8, I think.
Wow. Yeah.
8, yeah.
All are different in different areas of practice.
Yes,
Okay.
some overlap a little bit.
Okay.
We cover child and adolescent, some
Alright.
and very young children.
Wow. Oh, as young as
Infants as well.
infant. Seriously.
So infant mental health is something that's quite important, which a lot of people don't know.
Yeah. Tell us a bit about it.
So infant mental health is quite a personal favorite area of mine,
Okay.
as well as some of my colleagues. Infant mental health is associated with child and adolescent mental health, and of course with adulthood too.
Okay.
So in these areas, we cover the entire range from infant all the way up to geriatric work, which is the older adults. So we have expertise across the entire range, with expertise for particular issues in each age range too. So it covers the spread. So if you're interested in infant mental health, the idea is there's research been shown that you are a parent way before the child's born. So there's also research to show that mental health of moms, okay, whether moms have depression or not, impacts on the mental health of the child.
Okay.
So of course, if you have a depressed mom, you will also have associated. The child can feel what you feel.
Oh, right.
So moms know this. If you drink, you eat something, or you feel something, you got shock, your child will respond.
Okay.
Right? Whether the child struggles with something, moms know that. Right? Of course, there's a differentiation between moms that are aware of their own kids or moms that are unaware of their own kids.
Okay.
It's a separate topic altogether.
Right.
But for those moms that can recognize, right, bear in mind that some women don't know that they're pregnant as well, up to a very late stage. This is a real story. But I mean, coming from a guy, it's very rare you get guys talking about this. But for infant mental health, I think is the focus on respecting how an environment is very important for the development of an infant, from the fetal, in vitro, past that birth, as well as first contact with mom. So lying on the chest, allowing the fetus to, the infant to crawl towards the breast and the nipple and suckle. Those are very important parts of birth planning, as well as delivery and so on and so forth.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's why sometimes you what you say while the mom is pregnant, so you must talk to the kids. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, if mom can do that in some way, but also with the father.
Actually communicating with the kid actually.
Yeah.
So what's injected down there in terms of the positivity, so you turn out to be positive then.
If only it was that clear cut, it would be.
Yeah, only if research can show that, right?
Right, but also if father is also right can be present,
Okay.
it helps with mental health of the mom. But also if you want to speak to your child directly at the tummy, at the womb, that helps too.
Oh.
Yeah.
Alright. So moms, please talk to your babies while they are still there.
You can.
Alright? Be good, okay? You'll be a doctor, alright? You'll be a psychologist like Dr. Shawn.
I think that helps moms feel better, but technically, right, moms, when moms feel and talk, babies may not have the depending on the stage of development, they don't have years yet,
Yeah.
but they can feel the vibrations
Right.
of how mom says things.
Sure.
It promotes a sense of security. So we call that the process of attachment. Yeah.
Wonderful info. I hope that keep that in mind. So last but not least, Shawn, do you live to work or work to live?
Oh well, it's a hard question to answer. At different points in time in life.
Alright. So at this point of time,
A bit of both.
a bit of both. Okay.
A bit of both.
Please share with us.
I think-
How's that for you?
I think it's very personal, but I think
Yes.
once you have your own family, your own brood, focuses change a little bit. It's not just about building a business and doing something, for yourself, but it's also about the people around you. Especially since COVID has hit.
Yes.
Right? There's, I would imagine that a lot of people might feel a lot of anxiety, having to maintain the safety, security for families. So I suppose at the stage where I am right now, I do look forward, but also I think it's about staying secure for the people around me. Right? Not just my family, but also for my colleagues who work with me. So it's also like I would imagine a viable place for them. And I value not just being able to work together, and that's a fun thing, but it's also about being able to, make it worthwhile for those that I love to work around with me as well. So I suppose just relationally speaking, people in our practice, we're really quite close as well as friends, but we also can work pretty well together, and that's what makes us, I would think, quite a strong bond as a practice as well. So if anything, we are a cohesive unit, and we enjoy hanging out as well. So that's part of us as well. So I suppose to answer your question, I think it's a bit of both. A little bit of both.
So can we live to work and work to live?
Yeah, that's right.
Alright. Great. Thank you very much.
Very welcome.
From Mr. Shawn to Dr. Shawn today, you have come a long way. I think the group, the friends that you have, myself, we are very proud of your achievement.
Thanks very much.
And we wish you all the very best. Looking at the expansion from when the last time I visited your office to where it is today, you expanded a lot in a year. Alright, so wishing you all the very best. Thank you very much.
Thanks very much.
Cool. Alright. That's it, man. I hope that you enjoyed the session today. Alright, so please keep tuned to the next session that we're going to have. Another surprise for you. So till then, till we meet again, have a very good day. Thank you. Bye.